My name is Melody, and that's not an accident. I grew up in a home where drama and dance and music were everywhere. If there was a lesson, I was going to take it. Piano, violin, flute, ballet, and if there was a band, I was going to play in it. I loved nothing more than marching under the bright lights of Richmond City Stadium on a Friday night, leading the Jefferson Huguenot with Marching Trojans. Exactly. Ooh, darn. Well, that music you heard, that was the Happy Pal Stomp, and it was played by Johnson's Happy Pals. My great-uncle, William Allen, and we called him Uncle Bick, was a member of Johnson's Happy Pals. He played with them from the late 1920s until the early 1930s. They toured up and down the East Coast, and they even played the famed Savoy Ballroom in New York City. Now, by now, you probably have a sense that the arts have always been a life force for me. Even in my craziest days working in the United States Senate, and they were crazy, I would leave my desk and I would take acting classes at the Studio Theater Acting Conservatory. You could find me in improv pretending to be a tree. Or I took watercolor painting classes. This is one of my yet-to-be-completed masterpieces. My best friend had the same reaction. In fact, she told me that she was a little bit surprised that I was going to share this with you. She was stunned that I even still had it. And she told me once that if I ever saw anything that looked like this in nature, I should run. Well, you may never find this hanging in 1708 Gallery, and you will probably never find me acting at the Virginia Rep, but that's not the point. The point is that those painting classes and those drama classes, they gave me profound joy, and they changed me. When I returned to that desk in the United States Senate, I saw things differently. In fact, challenges that I had weren't so challenging, and solutions that had been out of reach were all of a sudden within my grasp. My guess is that many of you have had the exact same experience with the arts. So here's my question for you. Do the arts just change people? I don't think so. I think that the arts also change places. Richmond is a city that has been shaped and defined by the arts, telling people who we are and what we do, dramatically reshaping our landscape and our architecture, adorning our communities, and bringing us together, and sometimes tearing us apart. The arts are a reflection of our shortcomings and our aspirations, our vision and our values, for better or for worse. You remember I was telling you about my great-uncle, Uncle Bick? He wasn't just a jazz bassist, he was a phenomenal talent. He played with some of the great artists of his time, but they, like so many African Americans of that period, were relegated to the Chitlin circuit, the clubs where only blacks could play because of segregation. That legacy, you know, still lives with us today. In fact, Uncle Bick's parents, my great-grandparents, had a farm on the east side of this city. And when they owned that land, it was flourishing and vibrant and green. When they sold it, now some of our fellow residents live there in grinding poverty, some of the highest concentrations of poverty on the East Coast, here in Richmond, in Creighton Court. So on the one hand, we have these long-standing, deep-seated challenges, and on the other, we have these enormous arts assets. What if we were bolder with the arts? This is a promise that we made to our city, a commitment to our city 3 years ago. We said that we were going to make Richmond a place of opportunity for absolutely everyone who lived here. So if this is our moonshot, then why can't the arts be the rocket booster to get us there? We know that Richmond has a vibrant arts and cultural community. In fact, it's one of the reasons that my husband and I wanted to move back here 18 months ago, and I was so thrilled to move back home. But let's get real. In a city where life expectancy differs by 20 years, depending on whether you live in Gilpin Court or Westover Hills, we have a problem. But the solution I propose builds on work that I know many people in this room have started and have been working on for a very long time. Because in this room, I know that we have leaders from the Richmond Performing Arts Alliance, from Spark, from Ella, from Art 180, from the opera, the ballet, the symphony. We've got leaders from all of these great cultural programs because we are program rich, but system poor. So what if we thought about this a little bit differently tonight? What if, whether you're a business leader or a nonprofit leader, whether you're a volunteer or elected official, a student or an artist, or someone who can barely carry a tune, what if we all believed that the arts could be transformational for our city? And then we acted with urgency and in coordination and with an eye toward scale to deal with the challenges in our public schools, to build education to employment pathways for our residents, and to finally deal with the stuff that's just held us back for far too long. So first, let's talk about our public schools. Whether you're a resident or a school leader, you know that we are not providing an excellent education for every child in Richmond Public Schools. In fact, in parts of our city, we are struggling to provide a sufficient education to most. And yet, this affects absolutely everything that happens here. Our crime rate, whether or not employers want to locate here, healthcare, life expectancy, our housing patterns. It affects everything that happens here. So why don't we think differently about using the arts to deal with these challenges? I believe that we have a way forward if we think about these challenges and if we recognize that we've got a way to get better educational outcomes for our students. There's a wonderful program called Turnaround Arts. See, we've got Turnaround Arts fans in the audience. For the rest of you, let me tell you about it. It's a program that exists in 17 states and the District of Columbia. And its sole purpose is to bring resources into our schools, the lowest performing schools. I'm talking about the bottom 5 to 10% of our schools, so that our kids can get better educational outcomes. Those resources are things like coaches to work with our teachers, instruments for students that don't have them, additional arts instructors to work with teachers and with students, and celebrity artists, people like Kerry Washington and Yo-Yo Ma, who routinely go back to those schools and work with the students to make sure that they can achieve. And the thing is that we studied Turnaround Arts after 2 years of implementation. We looked at a group of those schools, and this is what we found. After 2 years, a 22% improvement in math, higher attendance rates, lower disciplinary problems. If this were some kind of education vitamin, we would be at every Rite Aid, every Walmart, every CVS to buy it. And yet these assets exist at our fingertips. We are going to have 3 turnaround arts programs in Richmond Public Schools next year. But imagine this. What if, from pre-K on up, we had these kinds of results for every child in Richmond Public Schools? I'm not telling you that the arts are the solution to all of the problems in our schools. That would be naive. What I am telling you is that we have an effective way to create greater opportunity, a richer educational experience, and a pathway forward for our kids. We just have to do this at scale. Number 2, education to employment pathways. Now, I want you to stay with me on this one. Many of you have been here all day, and you are a fantastic audience, and you have heard some wonderful speakers. But I know that I am standing between you and dinner. Now, with that dinner, you might have a fantastic glass of wine, and that glass of wine may come from the Napa Valley region of California. Here's what you may not know about that glass of wine. 137 years ago, the state of California mandated that the University of California begin an enology and viticulture program to support its growing wine region. Now, right now, some of you are thinking, okay, well, you're right, you do stand between me and dinner and that glass of wine. But what does that have to do with change and the arts and Richmond? Here's why I'm telling you this. We are probably, 100 paces from the #1 public arts university in the country, VCU. That's right. That's something to be proud of. And then, if we just go a little bit to the west, we've got the University of Richmond, which is a university that is led by a world-renowned cellist. And then, if we go to the north, we've got Virginia Union University, a history, got some VU Panthers, a university that has a history, a legacy of graduating artists and singers and writers. And we've also got Reynolds Community College. So why wouldn't we? Exactly. Why wouldn't we build education to employment pathways in the arts? Now, I can see that look in some of your eyes. You're thinking, okay, Napa Valley, University of California, I get it, but that's got to be a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Well, you better tell that to Walla Walla Community College in Walla Walla, Washington, because they are building education to employment pathways in winemaking, recognizing the booming Washington State wine sector. And we know you can get a great glass of Pinot from Washington State. Now, some of you are probably thinking, okay, all right, I can believe that, and I know, Melody, that you know, that they're building these kinds of pathways also in energy and manufacturing, but come on, in the arts, I mean, how many people could really be successful in the arts? I mean, let's go to Exhibit A, your watercolor painting. Yeah, see, your reaction is a little hurtful, it's a little painful, but your point is well taken. And to you, I would say this. Broaden your aperture. Think more broadly. Think differently about what it means to have a career in the arts. Singer, dancer, sculptor, yes. But game designer, web designer, architect, PR executive, arts therapist, music therapist, these are all careers in the arts. And we have the assets to build these pathways for our residents and to create greater economic security for them. We just have to do it. And so third, I know of no other way to say it, we have got to deal with the stuff that's just dragged us down for far too long. You know that we will never do what's necessary in Richmond Public Schools until we finally see every child in those schools as bright, as capable, as worthy. Until we internalize what James Baldwin told us years ago, they are all our children. We will profit by or pay for what they become. And we will never deal with the issues of crime that seem to have a stranglehold on our community right now until we ask ourselves, why are we so comfortable with the cradle-to-prison pipeline? Why is it that we have environments where children are dying in their front yards, where children are going to prison, where good police officers lose their lives? And we will never build those diverse and vibrant communities today until we ask ourselves why we didn't build them in the past. You see, the arts, spoken word and dance and music and film, they provoke and they challenge us. They ask us and compel us to think about things differently. They draw an empathy bridge between ourselves and people with whom we think we have nothing in common. They allow us to deal with issues like race and the Confederacy, like the changing core of our community and concerns about gentrification, real or perceived, about the resegregation of our schools. And this one, and I say this because I'm from here, that come here, from here syndrome, that old guard, new guard friction that's held us back for far too long. Recently, I was talking to Anjali Moon, and she is the founder of the Africana Film Festival. And Anjali told me that after people watch those films, they think about and have different kinds of conversations, deeper, richer conversations, conversations about complex and surprising and difficult issues. It is as though the film provides them with a pathway into the conversation that they otherwise would not have had. And also here in Richmond, at VCU, there's a new program called iCubed. It's a transdisciplinary program. It will bring together the School of Business and the School of Public Health and Psychology and African American Studies and the School of the Arts and also the new Institute of Contemporary Art for the sole purpose of allowing us to think about issues that have challenged urban areas like Richmond and issues like equity and opportunity. And when it comes to the arts, it will allow us to strengthen our arts infrastructure so that experts and residents alike can work together and so that we can address issues of social justice. These are tools that will allow us to deal with these issues that have held us back. You know, a few minutes ago, when I started speaking with you, I reminded all of us that Richmond has a moonshot, that we are going to make this a better community, a stronger community for everyone who lives here. By definition, moonshots are big, hairy, audacious goals, but they are also achievable. Remember, we did get to the moon. Not because it was easy, but because it was hard. We gathered our energy and our assets, and we came together and we better educated our children. We built entire new industries and sectors, and we created new jobs. And we had a shared sense of spirit and commitment to a goal that we all believed in. We can do that here today for our city. The arts can be that rocket booster. It can help us strengthen our schools. It can build greater economic security for all of our residents. And it can help us identify that which is inside of us that is profoundly human, so we can heal those wounds. There has never been a more important time for us North Side and South Side, East End and West, to come together to build a stronger, more vibrant Richmond, a Richmond that is more beautiful inside and out.